Good afternoon, everybody. It's Miss Morgan from the Williston Community Library bringing you today's STEAM activity. So today we have something fun. We're going to do some salt crystal leaves, and just so you know, this does take a couple of days, so even though we're going to start it today, it won't be done for a couple of days, and the longer you leave it, the more that it'll work its magic. Alright, so we're going to read a book called From Sea to Salt, and this is by Lisa Owings. From Sea to Salt. I love salty snacks. How was salt made? Salt comes from the sea. Most salt on earth comes from the sea. In some places by the sea, the sun almost always shines. The wind blows gently, and rain rarely falls. These are perfect places for harvesting salt. First, workers pump seawater into ponds. Workers pump seawater into shallow ponds. As the sun beats down, some of the water evaporates. The remaining water gets saltier and saltier. The water becomes saturated when it can hold no more salt. And look at that. Salt crystals form as the water dries. The saturated salt water is moved to other ponds. There, more of the water evaporates, and this time it leaves salt crystals behind. The evaporation process often takes years. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I didn't know that it took so long for salt to form, though, or salt crystals. Next, workers harvest the salt. Workers wait until there is a thick layer of salt crystals. Then they harvest the salt. In some countries, workers rake the salt into piles. In others, trucks scoop up the salt. Look at all of that salt. It kind of looks like snow. Trucks take the salt to a factory. Trucks carry loads of salt to a factory. The factory makes a salt puree and turns it into a variety of useful products. Then the salt is washed and dried. Machines at the factory wash the salt to clean it. They use salt water to wash the salt because the salt would dissolve in fresh water. The other machines dry the salt with hot air. Did you know there was so much that has to go into getting salt? I think it's pretty cool. Next, the salt is sorted. Machines or workers move the clean salt over a series of screens. Each screen allows only a certain size of crystals to pass through. The screens sort the salt into large, medium, and small crystals. Each has a different use. And look at the sifter right there. So this looks like it might have medium or large. Machines package the salt. Only the purest salt is used to flavor food. Machines pack this salt into containers. Then workers ship the salt to stores. And look, those are some of the things of salt that you can find at the store. Or you can find little grinders, and they have like bigger pieces of salt, and you sit and you grind them to make the salt come out like this, the tiny specks. Finally, the salt is ready for your table. People have enjoyed salt for thousands of years. Grind, shake, or sprinkle a little on your next meal. Bon appetit. The end. All right, everybody. So now that we've read our story, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about our activity. So like I said earlier, it is an activity that takes a couple of days. Hopefully you've had a chance to pick up a kit from us. We do have 2 left as far as I'm aware. So if you haven't got one, you can maybe call and pick one up. We also have a couple of our S.T.E.A.M kits left from last time too. So if you want to do the popcorn, the dancing popcorn kernels, those are available too. We have a couple of those left. All right, so if you picked up your kits from us, it came with two containers of salt. Or I did run out of these containers, so you might just have one big container, but it's the same amount of salt. So you're going to need those. You're going to need your pipe cleaner. You should have got a clothespin with it, and then you're going to need a cup of hot water. So you're going to want to make sure that it is hot water so that the salt kind of dissolves a little bit. Are you ready? Okay, so like I said, you're going to need some warm water, your pipe cleaner. You guys have a clothespin. I ran out of clothespin, so I just have a straw, which will work as well. So if you have the materials at home and you didn't pick up a kit, you can still participate. So what you're going to do is first we're going to make our leaves. So I'm just going to make my leaf like this, and you can make your leaf as complicated or as simple as you would like, because we all know that leaves have different shapes, correct? So my leaf is going to be kind of boring. So here is my leaf. So next, we're going to add our salt into our water, and we're going to mix it around, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a second so that if you're still working on your leaves, you can continue doing that. And then I did mine a couple days ago as well, so that you would be able to see an example of what it'll look like. You will have to set them in the sun for a little bit. So like on a windowsill, I have mine in the windowsill of the kids area, and it seems to have done pretty well, even though it's been kind of cloudy the past couple days. But I think it'll work. And sometimes science experiments don't, so if it doesn't, don't feel bad. But yeah, let's go ahead and start. So I'm going to take, and you're going to need all of your salt. So I'm going to take both things of my salt, and I'm going to stir it around. And it is going to be very, very cloudy, but over time the salt will begin settling, so it'll be okay. You'll be able to see it, and I promise. Alright, so now that I have done my stirring of my salt, what you're going to do is you're going to take your clothespin, and if you have a clothespin, you're going to just kind of clamp it on here, and then you're just going to put it in the water. Since I don't have a clothespin, I'm just wrapping it around my straw. But you'll do kind of the same thing. You want it to be able to lay across, and if it doesn't lay across, you can take like a spoon or something and lay it across, and then you're just going to let it sit, and you want to make sure that it touches the bottom. So I don't know if you can see in there, but it's touching the bottom, and like my salt's already started to settle, which like I said is okay, because over time it's going to settle anyways, and once the water begins evaporating is when your crystals will begin forming. So this is what mine looks like that I did 3 days ago. I think I did it 3 afternoons ago. So my crystals are forming, and this time I had used a plastic butter knife. But if you look, there's little crystals beginning to form on the pipe cleaner itself, and then they also formed all over the top of my cup, on the outside of my cup, as well as on the very top and on the back of my knife, and even on the knife itself. So it's a pretty cool science experiment. You can do it as many times as you want if you have extra supplies at your house or anything. You can try different leaves, leaf shapes, things like that. And another cool thing is you can actually use real leaves with this as well, and it should form the crystals the same exact way. So if you want to try that, you can do that as well. All right. Well, like we had learned about in the book, the salt crystals form when the water begins evaporating, so that's what causes this reaction. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's STEAM activity. We hope that you enjoy it. I would say enjoyed, but you won't see the results for a couple days. And the longer you leave it, the more the water will evaporate, and the more your crystals will begin to form. All right, thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you next time.